So just so you're aware, the little notification will pop up in just a moment. Okay. So I'm not going to start again from the beginning. To be honest, we haven't really got that far into the presentation yet, so it's not as bad a situation as I made it sound. But effectively, this is what the changes were all about. Okay, it was just a name change. There has been some confusion, but as before, all of these slides will be made available to you. So if you are having these conversations with customers, you can clearly show what is the difference between this SKUs, what became what. But like I said, it was just a name change. All of the products still have the same features that they had before. M365 Business Essentials, now known as Business Basic, is still just the cloud services. So all of the cloud services such as Exchange, Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, and of course the web versions of Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. You don't get the desktop applications with M365 Business Basic, meaning that this is a SKU which needs to be used online. Okay, there is no offline working capabilities. But we're talking about moving people from business standard to business premium. Now you can quite clearly see the difference between these two SKUs. They both include the cloud services and the desktop applications, but it is the advanced security and device management features that really stand this product apart. And some of you will remember we spoke about some of these features in last week's session. We spoke about things like Windows Virtual Desktop. We spoke about things like Azure information protection, being able to classify and label our data, things like Intune as well for managing devices, things like advanced threat protection, Defender for Office 365 against protecting against phishing-based emails and phishing-based attacks. So there are lots of really great features. And again, all of these security products, a majority of these security products, have been lifted directly out of products like M365 E5. So that means that customers with Business Premium are going to be getting enterprise level security in an SMB SKU, a SKU which costs £15.10 per user per month. So it really is phenomenal value. So let's talk about what our customer is currently using. So in this scenario, we're talking about upselling customers from M365 Business Standard. Now, as you remember, on the previous slide, we can see the Business Standard comprises of the cloud services and the desktop applications. Business Standard is a good product. Everyone gets a terabyte of cloud storage. You can install Business Standard on multiple devices. In fact, it's 15 devices per user. Business Standard can be installed on. In fact, all M365 products can be installed on 15 devices per user. And it breaks down like this. It's 5 PCs, laptops or Macs, 5 phones, 5 tablets per user. Okay, so it gives a huge amount of flexibility, especially for a remote workforce. Flexibility of what device you choose to use that day. If I was to walk out of my house with nothing but my mobile phone in my pocket, I can be confident that I've still got my entire office with me. And Business Standard is under £10 per user per month, only £9.40. That again, that is really good value. But we know there are things that Business Standard doesn't have. It doesn't have the same levels of security. It doesn't have the same levels of device management. So that tells us that customers who are using Business Standard would possibly be procuring these services from elsewhere. And this leads us to some potential questions that we can ask our customers who are using Business Standard. We can be asking questions about how are they enabling or how are they managing their remote workers? Because we know Business Standard doesn't include anything like MDM tools, Enterprise Mobility and Security, or Windows Virtual Desktop. So how are your Business Standard customers doing this? Are they purchasing products like AirWatch, for example, or Mobile Iron? Are they using other virtualization tools like Citrix or VMware? And if they are, fantastic. But how much does it cost? How much do those additional products cost per user per month? Is that something they would potentially like to save money on, but still have the same high standards of security and control? we can be pretty sure that people on business standard have a pretty high reliance on third-party security solutions, that they would potentially be spending quite a bit of money on third-party products. And again, let's find out. Let's ask the customer, what are they using? How much is it costing? How are they managing their BYD environments? What about data as well? That was another thing we mentioned right at the beginning of last week's session, that data was a big concern with people working remotely and data being shared more freely than ever before. Some people are able to send sensitive corporate documents outside of the business, sending documents to people that they shouldn't be. How are your customers on business standard managing these types of issues? And if they, like I said, if they are using third-party products, well, let's find out. What are those products? How much does it cost? How much time, effort, and energy goes into managing those third-party tools? Because our narrative from the last session hasn't changed. We're still talking about reducing that cost and that complexity. Okay. So if our customer were to make the move from M365 Business Premium to M365 Business M365, sorry, Business Standard to Business Premium, how much extra is it going to cost? Well, it's going to cost an additional £5.70 per user per month on top of what they would have already paying. So £15.10 per month in total. And what are you getting for that extra money, for that extra £5.70? Because when you say this to some customers, you'll hear a sharp intake of breath when you tell them it's going to cost an additional £5.70. Now, I get that, £5.70, it's still a fair old chunk of change, but it only seems expensive when the customer doesn't really understand the value of really what they're getting for that £5.70. So let's have a look. For £5.70, you're going to be getting things like Endpoint Manager, Azure Information Protection, Conditional Access, a license for Windows Virtual Desktop, Defender Antivirus, Defender for Office 365, and Cloud App Security, all for just an extra £5.70 per user per month. And just to kind of illustrate that value, if you were to go out, and feel free to give this a go, try and find third-party enterprise grade equivalent solutions of all of these different products, all of these different solutions right here, and see if you can find solutions for everything and come in under that cost. You won't be able to. This really is great value for what you're getting for your money. And again, don't forget that all of these solutions that you get with M365 Business Premium, not only is there a considerable cost saving around what some customers may be paying for third-party solutions, all of these solutions are natively integrated. They are designed to work together. You don't have to worry about things like compatibility, wondering, is this going to work with this, and will that work with this, and will this work with that? You don't need to worry, because all of these products out the box are designed to work with each other. They are designed to be compatible. And again, not just the security products, but absolutely everything here is designed to be compatible. It's designed to be managed from a single pane of glass. From the M365 security console, you can have visibility over your entire M365 estate. So it really does simplify management. It simplifies deployment, and it potentially saves a lot of money for customers. And just to put it into perspective, I mean, things like Azure Information Protection, Norton sells their equivalent of this product, and Norton sells it for £4.73 per user per month for their document security and management solutions. £4.73. That's only slightly less than what you'd pay to go to Business Premium and have all of this. So I think the value is pretty clear, but what do you think? Does anyone want to look into their crystal balls right now and potentially think about any objections that customers might throw at you? If you were to have this conversation with a customer right now about moving from standard to premium, what sort of objections do you think they could come up with? Any thoughts? Okay, no, well, I'm if there's no objections, I'm pleased with that. One of the things that one partner did say to me is that this is, and whilst it's good, this is a lot of products, and it is. And to be honest, it's not like these things are configured particularly quickly, especially if you're doing this on behalf of your customer. If you're an MSP and you're going to be managing this stuff on behalf of your customers, fantastic. But don't forget, you can, when you sell this product, you can work on it as a kind of a rolling deployment. All of this can be deployed fairly quickly as kind of like a phase one. And as part of phase one, you might want to get things like their security products like Defender and Defender for Office 365 up and running as part of phase one. Phase two might be things like Endpoint Manager, conditional access, and information protection. Phase three might be cloud app security, and phase four would be things like Windows Virtual Desktop. So again, it can all be kind of broken up and taking customers on that migration path and kind of doing, rather than just trying to rush and do everything over the course of like, say, like a weekend. Effectively, we can roll these solutions out. But I'm hoping that you can see that the value is really there. For £5.70, this is incredibly cost effective. There are no third-party equivalent products that can do what we can do here at the same level for that price. Okay. And the value doesn't just come from the obvious things that we've just looked at. It's some of the other tools as well, which people use. I mean, there's some clear things in there. I mean, we spoke last time about things like Microsoft Teams, for example. But again, consider some of the other products which customers use. People using things like SurveyMonkey. I'm sure you've all heard of SurveyMonkey. You know what that is. You know, it's a tool which is used for polls, surveys, quizzes, questionnaires, that sort of stuff. There are tens of thousands of SurveyMonkey customers in the UK. But why not use things like Microsoft Forms? It's included as part of Business Premium. It gives a lot of the same functionality. Is this another area where customers could potentially save money? Maybe they've been using SurveyMonkey for absolutely years and they're just used to it. Have they been presented with an alternative? Could they start using things like Forms, for example? One of the other things which has actually become incredibly popular, especially during the course of the last year with lockdown, are team management tools. I've seen loads of adverts for things like Asana and Monday.com and Trello, tools which are used to manage teams, projects, objectives, that sort of thing. Okay. And again, some of these tools, they can cost from £10 to £20 per user per month. Whereas again, things like M365 Business Premium comes with things like Planner, which you can use to build out projects. You can assign tasks to individual groups or just individual users, rather than being one of those managers that's phoning up your employees every couple of days or sending emails going, have you done this? Where are we with this project? Have you done X, Y, or Z yet? Having things like Planner allows everyone to stay on the same page. You can set very clear objectives and benchmarks that people need to hit. You can assign a project with a due date, a start and an end date, sorry, when this project needs to be finished by. Check boxes they can tick off as they've met certain goals as they work through the project. And again, it just keeps everyone on the same page about what's going on. And with a remote workforce, that level of communication is absolutely imperative. More and more people are buying these third-party tools, and I'll bet that a lot of people are buying them because they don't know that that functionality is already available in tools they might already own, things like M365, for example. And then we've got things like Bookings and MileIQ. Has anyone heard of these tools before, Bookings or MileIQ?
Yeah, sorry, no? Ed, I don't want to leave you out there on your own. I have.
Oh, thank you. What do you reckon, Robin? Have you are you familiar with either of those?
The MileIQ, I've heard, mileage tracker, and the Bookings, something fairly similar, but I haven't used them personally myself nor sold them yet.
Okay, no worries. You haven't sold them yet, no?
No.
Okay, yep, no worries. No, that's absolutely fine. And really, that's why we're here, Robin. So that's absolutely fine. Let me just show you. That's actually not on on a different slide deck. Let me just show you this quickly, because excuse me 1 second while I just find this. So for those of you that don't know, let's talk about bookings real quick, because again, bookings is included as part of Business Premium. Now, this may not be a particular solution which all of your customers are going to go nuts for. This is quite a specific tool, but it can make all the difference to certain customers. So bookings is like a front-facing calendar, which customers can embed onto their websites or into their mobile applications, or even into their business Facebook accounts if they wanted to. And effectively, this allows customers to see their availability. If they need to book them for services or whatever it might be, they can see the availability and they can book their own services. And again, consider the world that we live in at the moment, where everything kind of works on a bookings basis. I went to try and get my hair cut this week, and in order to do so, I have to make a booking. That's not how I used to do it. I'm sure any of you that went to the barbers, you could just show up, sit on the bench, wait your turn, read the newspaper, and that would be it. But now I need to make a booking. And that's going to be very much the same for many customer-facing industries. To maintain levels of social responsibility and distancing, they'll have to limit the amount of people they deal with at any one time. So bookings is going to be more important for more customers than ever. Now, I do have an example which I'd like to show. Now, this is a kind of a mock-up of a customer case study. It's using a sole trader as an example. Now, I don't want you to watch this video and think to yourself, well, I don't have any dog groomers as my customers, so this is irrelevant to me. I want you to have a think about how tools like this could be potentially relevant to customers that you deal with. Okay, so have a quick look at this and let me know what you think. Let me just make sure my my system audio is on quickly just before I play this. Okay, cool. Have a quick look at this video.
Meet Sarah. She owns a pet grooming business. She's also the chief financial officer, inventory supervisor, and janitor. Sarah loves her business because she loves dogs. But Sarah has her hands full. She spends so much time scheduling appointments, she sometimes loses focus on her clients. And to make sure those clients show up, Sarah plays phone tag a lot. But with Microsoft Bookings, Sarah can spend less time scheduling because Sarah's customers can now book appointments whenever it's convenient, like right about now. Her customers simply go to her website, see what's available, book the service, the day, even the staff member. The information shows up across all of Sarah's devices. And the customer gets a confirmation and reminder email that they can easily add to their calendar. No phone tag, no stress. Everything is scheduled. And Sarah can focus on what she loves best, making sure every dog has his day. That's how you grow a business. Way to go, Sarah.
Okie doke. So that's Microsoft Bookings. What do you think? Any thoughts on bookings for those of you that haven't seen this before?
Yeah, wow. Ed is my answer from Robin. I'm still struggling to try and work out where we'd put it in the corporate, the enterprise world, but that's just my creativity lacking there. So,
well, here's some examples of how I've seen some commercial users using this. So I know that some commercial customers I've spoken to, they've told me that they've started using bookings internally for people booking desk space in the office. So a lot of, like we said, a lot of people, the way they're going to be returning to work, they need to manage the amount of people they have in the office. So I know some customers are using bookings. So before someone comes into the office, they've got to book a hot desk before they come in, and they're using bookings internally for that. I know of some commercial customers, so some resellers, a couple of resellers that I work with, they use bookings for managing like technical support. where they've got things like engineers that need to kind of work on tickets or go out onto site to do repairs and maintenance on things like servers, PBXs, that sort of stuff. Customers can send through kind of requests for engineers and on-site service report, and again, they're using bookings for that. So there's loads of different ways that it can be used. Okay, it's not necessarily just for sole traders. There's lots of kind of very interesting ways and innovative ways that larger organizations have started using this, and there are plenty of bookings tools available. You've got things like Calendly, you've got Reservio as well, but as you can see, Reservio will charge a very handsome £29 per user per month for their solution. Again, bookings is just included free with M365 Business Premium. In fact, this is also in M365 Business Standard as well. So this isn't a specific benefit of Business Premium. This is included in Standard, it's in Premium, and E3 and E5. So again, a brilliant tool which people can use. Like I said, not something that everyone is going to be absolutely clamoring for, but for some customers, it's these hidden gems. There's these little bits of additional value in M365 that can make all the difference. And same goes with MultiIQ. Some of you may have seen MultiIQ before, and as you might have guessed, it is a automatic mileage tracking application. Now, I started using MultiIQ back in 2018 because before lockdown, I was traveling around the country pretty much 5 days a week, visiting partners and disties. And I'd easily be covering a couple of thousand miles every single month. It was a lot, and more often than not, I would forget to write down my mileage. And so at the end of the day or at the end of the month, I'd be sat there on Google Maps, retracing my steps, writing down my mileage, doing all the calculations, filling out my expenses form, then doing my HMRC tax report. It was a lot of admin. And you know, if you're doing admin, then you're not doing work. Really, I mean, admin, paperwork, all that, the stuff you don't really want to be doing. And MultiIQ removes a lot of that admin from you, because when I was using it in 2018, I would use the MultiIQ app. I would open it up on my phone and just minimize it, have it running in the background all day. And as I drive around, it automatically detects driving because it knows that I can't walk at 30 miles an hour. So it knows when I'm driving. It tracks all my journeys. Then at the end of the day or the end of the week, end of the month, I can go back through every journey that I've made, and I just organize it into personal and business. So I swipe right for business, swipe left for personal. So it's a bit like playing mileage Tinder in that respect. And then after I've done all that, I've already given it how much pence per mile I claim and everything else. And at the end of the month, it generates a report for me. A report on all of the business miles, all of my personal miles, how much money I can claim. I can send that as a report straight through to my admin guy who deals with all of our expenses. I've got a report which I can download. I've got all the data that I need for my HMRC tax report, all of this. It even works with certain tools like Xero as well. So if you use Xero for accountancy and stuff like that, again, MultiIQ is compatible with some accountancy tools. So again, it is fantastic. Now, MultiIQ again is included as part of Business Premium. You don't download MultiIQ from the tenant. MultiIQ, you just download it from the Google Play Store or the App Store. And once you've downloaded it, sign in with your M365 credentials, your Office credentials, and then you've got full functionality of the app for absolutely free. And again, this is all designed to cut down on admin time, to let people spend more time doing the things that are important to them, rather than spending hours in doing, you know, mundane paperwork. And as before, just a very quick video just to talk about the benefits of MultiIQ. Have a quick look at this.
Let's go. I don't want anything in my life that's costing me time, that's costing me money, that's costing me a headache. If it's something that's actually going to help me, then I'm all for it. There's a lot of running around in a day, and each day that changes. I'm Shauna Stokes. I'm a real estate agent, and I use MultiIQ. I have a great career. I love what I do. I have a lot of fun. Ultimately, my family is the most important. I live in my car. So I would log miles myself, pen and paper. But then if I got busy, then I would miss a whole week. And then I'm like, oh, I can't go back and retrack all that. Knowing that MultiIQ is always working in the background is awesome. All I have to do is swipe left for personal or right for business. At the end of the year, I get a report from MultiIQ and I send that right over to my tax guy and we're good to go.
Hi, Mom. Hey, babes.
The last thing I'm thinking about is logging miles. I'm only thinking about spending time with my boys. It gives me back time. It gives me back money. There's no headaches. So that's why MultiIQ is in my life.
Okie doke. So that's MultiIQ. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts about anything that we've been through so far?
Yeah, Ed, it's Robin again. Sorry, I don't want to take over this whole meeting.
That's right.
What a fantastic product. I like that. I've got some ideas on who and where I can sell that into. How does it work back end, though, when you want to access those reports? It says from any device. And where is it stored? Is it stored in the cloud? And then you log into the cloud, you get it, generate the report, and then send it off to your finance department?
That's right. Yes. So it's everything. Everything is stored in the cloud Yes, that's right.
And would the hierarchy above you then have access to that report if they need to get it beforehand? Or
oh, that is a good question. I don't think so. I think that the data that is collected is personal to you until you. It'd be like your OneDrive. Effectively, it would be personal to you until you share it.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
So it couldn't be used as a tracking tool for example, your higher ups wouldn't be able to kind of look at your journeys and where you'd been and all that sort of stuff unless you share the report.
Okay, got you. Thanks.
And then when you do share the report, you'd only be sharing just the business journeys. So that would be the only thing that would be visible to them once that report is uploaded.
Well, just on that, I saw in the video that you swipe left for personal, right for business, or the other way around. What if you swipe the wrong way and you still want it to be a business record? What will happen then?
I think you can go back and edit. So you can go back to your personal journeys. So I've done that before. So if I've accidentally swiped a personal trip and I've accidentally swiped it as business, I can go back into my personal journeys and I can reallocate that one as a business trip.
Gotcha. Okay.
So you can edit it, of course, if you make a mistake.
Lovely, brilliant. Thanks, Ed.
But and again, it can be for some of your customers. This could be a brilliant tool. I mean, I'd say even for yourselves, and especially once we're out of lockdown and we start moving about again, and when you do start going out onto customer sites and visiting clients again, this is just a tool which takes away that headache of just having to manage mileage and expenses. Some of you will have customers that throughout the course of lockdown, they have still continued to travel. Some of you may have customers that exist as part of essential services, people that have to, so maybe kind of, and again, I don't know all the customers you guys deal with. Some of you may deal with, I don't know, large electricians firms or large plumbing companies where they do still have their guys out and about every single day. So again, could this be a tool that could make their teams more productive? So again, these are just the things that can just add that additional value. But I want to talk about what really makes business premium different to business standard. And a lot of this is stuff that we spoke about in last week's session. So things like multi-factor authentication and conditional access. Now, like I said, we did speak about this last week, and we discussed that identity and access is a big concern at the moment, with everyone working remotely. Making sure that the right people are getting the right access is absolutely paramount. With a huge upsurge in cyber attacks, making sure that access to our infrastructure is as controlled and as strong as it can be. Now, using things like multi-factor or two-factor authentication is a great way of doing this. And by implementing multi-factor authentication, as you can see on the screen, you can reduce your odds of being compromised by up to 99.9%. And then tying that into things like conditional access, for example, again, as some of you will remember, we spoke about how it monitors you as a user, how it builds up this character profile about how, when, and where you use your device. So in terms of the locations that you work from, the types of device that you're using, and if you start signing in from weird locations, weird IP addresses, or start using devices that we've never seen before, how that could potentially be deemed as suspicious behavior. And things like conditional access will work with MFA to get you to prove that you are the person you claim to be. Now, as I mentioned again last week, there are plenty of solutions out there that deal with multi-factor authentication. We've got an example on the screen there, Cisco Duo, which is a fantastic product. It really is. Again, no one is questioning the quality of Cisco products. But again, it's that narrative, isn't it? It's about reducing that cost and complexity. Cisco Duo costs £2.40 per user per month. And again, that doesn't sound like a lot of money, but scale £2.40 up over 50, 100, 200 users. Suddenly that can be quite a large amount for just things like MFA. And again, why pay for something and manage a third-party product when you can have it all included as part of Microsoft 365 Business Premium? The next thing is Windows Virtual Desktop. Now, again, this is something which we did discuss last week. And the fact that a license for Windows Virtual Desktop is included as part of M365 Business Premium. So organizations like Citrix and VMware, which also do fantastic virtual desktop solutions, they would charge a monthly license fee for their products. Citrix, for example, will charge £14 per user per month just for a Windows Virtual Desktop license. Whereas if you've got M365 Business Premium, you don't have to pay for an additional license cost because that is included as part of M365 Business Premium. The only thing the customer would have to pay for are the Azure services, the virtual machines, the storage, the networking, all of the consumption-based services within Azure. But effectively, this means that customers, if they were using things like Citrix or VMware, they could potentially migrate their Citrix or VMware workloads into Microsoft Windows Virtual Desktop and potentially save on that £14 per user per month, a real opportunity to save customers a significant amount. So if any of you do have any VDI customers who have got large Citrix or large VMware deployments, that is potentially a conversation you could have. And the fact that anyone who's got M365 Business Premium or M365 E3 or M365 E5 is eligible for Windows Virtual Desktop, that means there are 14.5 million eligible Windows Virtual Desktop customers in the UK. It is a huge market opportunity right now. More and more customers are turning towards virtualization. In the past, it was mainly larger enterprises that used virtual desktops. But now we're starting to see much smaller businesses embrace virtualization because of that flexibility that it gives them around security, the flexibility around devices as well, the fact they don't have to be buying their employees expensive devices. In some cases, they don't have to buy them devices at all because people can just use their own personal laptops, their own personal desktops, iPads or Android tablets. Any internet capable device can run Windows Virtual Desktop. So it can save significant money across an entire infrastructure from management, security, deployment, and devices. Just to reiterate, now is the time to be having these conversations about Windows Virtual Desktop. So I mentioned this last week, but I am just going to mention it one more time because there is that special offer which is going on at the moment. This special offer is running until the end of June this year, where Microsoft is offering a 30% discount for 90 days from the date of redemption on all D series and BS series Windows virtual machines in the Windows Virtual Desktop host pool. That means that if you do have any customers who are considering moving to a virtualization infrastructure, this is a great way for them to experiment, to dip their toes in the water, see how it works, but do it for a significantly reduced cost. See how virtualization works out for them. And obviously, we don't just talk about virtualization in terms of replacing existing infrastructure, especially if it's existing Citrix or VMware environments. Windows Virtual Desktop can be used to extend a customer's existing VDI. So if you do have customers who are using Citrix, who are using VMware, they're not looking to get rid of those, but they can buy Windows Virtual Desktop and use it to extend what they already have. And it can all be centrally managed. Citrix, VMware, Windows Virtual Desktop, it can all be centrally managed through Microsoft Windows Virtual Desktop. So it really is a scalable and very flexible solution for customers of all sizes. Any questions on anything Windows Virtual Desktop related? No, we all good? Okie doke. Let's soldier on then in that case. One of the other things around Windows Virtual Desktop, M365 Business Premium. And again, it was one of those things we mentioned in last week's session, again, around managing corporate data. And making sure that corporate data remains where it should be. We spoke about Azure Information Protection, how it can be used to classify and label data. I mentioned earlier that Norton will charge £4.73 per user per month for a similar tool. And again, it comes back to that, why pay for something extra when it can be included as part of Business Premium? Again, you do not get things like Azure Information Protection in M365 Business Standard. So again, when we're speaking to those Business Standard customers, let's ask them about their data. How are they managing it? How are they making sure that their most sensitive information isn't potentially being sent to people who are not authorized to receive it? Could Azure Information Protection be a great way of doing this? If they're already paying for Norton, would it make more sense to spend a few extra pence, cancel Norton and make the move to Business Premium? Could that make more sense potentially to that customer? And again, coming back to device management, again, this was another key message that came out of last week's session: data and devices. Yes, in last week's session, we spoke around the differences between MDM and MAM. Are we all very comfortable with the differences between these, or does anyone need a recap? No,
could we do a quick recap, if you don't mind?
Yep, certainly. Yep.
Thank you.
So Microsoft Intune is Microsoft's mobile device management platform. So lots of customers, especially people who have got Business Standard, Intune is not included as part of Business Standard. That means that Business Standard customers, in order to manage mobile devices that are being used by their staff, if those devices are managed, then they might be using third-party solutions in order to do so. Things like AirWatch and Mobile Iron, products like that. But again, it is that additional cost. Intune and enterprise mobility and security features are included with M365 Business Premium. Now, Intune is available in two different flavors. It's available as MDM and it's available as MAM. So these are the two options. So MDM at the top there and MAM. Now, what is the difference between the two? Why would a customer choose one over the other? Well, let's talk about MDM firstly. So MDM would typically be used for company-owned devices. So if I gave all of you guys company issued mobile phones or company issued devices like tablets, for example, I would probably want to have ultimate control over those devices, because at the end of the day, they belong to the company. So if I wanted to create policies that stop you from being able to download things like Facebook or Snapchat or Instagram, or just downloading whatever applications you want onto your company issued devices, well, I can do that. I've got full control over the device. If I need to lock or wipe the device, if it was lost or stolen, I need to be able to embed encryption onto the device. Again, I can do that because it is company owned. Now, whilst this is very good, it does give, like I said, a lot of control over the device to the company. Now, I'm pretty sure that no one on this call would want to enroll their personal mobile device into something like MDM, because if you did, you would be handing over control of your personal device to the organization. And I can't imagine many people wanting to do that. I certainly wouldn't. I don't want my company telling me what apps I can and can't download onto my personal iPhone. I paid for that phone. It's my phone. I want to be able to, if I want to download Facebook on it, I want to be able to do that. That's fair, I think. And Microsoft agrees. If it's your personal phone, you should have control over it. So the other option for managing devices is this option here, which is MAM, which is Mobile Application Management. Now, mobile application management varies from MDM because this only gives control to the organization over the applications which are used for business use. So the company doesn't have control over the device. They've only got control over the business applications that are installed on that device. And should the company need to, if the device was lost or stolen, or if you left the company one day, the company can delete the corporate applications from that device, leaving all of the personal data completely untouched. And just to give a better view of what that looks like, let me just show you this again. This will probably just make it a bit clearer. And for those of you from last week's session, you'll remember this. This is just an example of what an MAM deployment looks like. So, for example, when we deploy mobile application management, what it does, it creates what we call a multi-identity policy. Now, multi-identity policy is just a very fancy way of saying data separation between your managed corporate data and your personal data. Now, it's worth mentioning that the personal data is not visible to the organization. As far as they're concerned, this part of the device doesn't exist. The only thing the organization can see is the managed corporate applications. Now they can see them, they don't have access to them. They can't just go reading your emails or going through your OneDrive or anything like that. They don't have carte blanche when it comes to personal privacy. But what it does mean, if my device was lost or stolen, or if I woke up one morning and said, you know what, I don't want to work at this company anymore, as soon as I tell them, they can delete this portion of the device, leaving all of my personal data completely untouched. So this really does give the best of both worlds. It means that from a BYOD perspective, I can use my personal phone for work purposes. I can be safe in the knowledge that my personal applications, my personal data is completely private and it's accessible only to me. And the organization is safe in the knowledge that they at all times have control over their data and their applications. Now, one of the other things which again I mentioned in last week's session is if I tried to save, let's say for example I've got this Word document which is in my managed apps. Now I can save that into my corporate OneDrive, for example. That's fine, of course, because it's part of the managed apps. But if I tried to save this Word document into my corporate into my personal Google Drive or something like that, well, unfortunately that won't work, because app protection policies can be configured that ensure that corporate data can only be saved within corporate applications. And this is good because this just makes sure that data, corporate data, remains where it should be. Does that make sense as an overview?
Yes, thank you.
No worries.
That's great, thank you.
So, and to be honest, that's one of the big concerns right now is around devices. There are more personal devices being used than ever before right now, and a lot of those devices are completely unmanaged. people not wanting to enroll their devices into their company's policies because they don't want to give up control. In some cases, organizations that don't even have MDM or BYOD policies in place. This is a great way that organizations can reclaim control over their data, over their applications, but still give their employees that flexibility around devices and how they get their work done. So it's a great compromise. And again, this is a product which is included as part of Business Premium. And just to give like an overview of some of these products, and again, I'm not saying customers are buying all of this stuff. This is a bit of an exaggerated example, but here's some examples of what customers spend their money on. And again, we're talking about specifically customers on things like Business Standard, for example. So we've got people buying a whole plethora of security solutions. And we know that with Business Standard to Business Premium, the cost differential is £5.70. That's the cost that it would take to go from standard to premium. And again, this is why it's important that we speak to our customers, that we understand what products they're using, what solutions they've got in place, and let's find out why. Why are they using the solutions they are? If they're using things like AirWatch for their MDM, well, let's find out why. Is there a specific reason? Maybe there's something in AirWatch which our tools can't do, so there might be a legitimate reason for it. But in most cases, we find that people using these products, they're using them because they've been using them for years and they're just comfortable. They're just used to it. They don't know there's potentially a better solution out there. And again, we know the price differential, £5.70. So if I was speaking to a customer and they told me that they were using, I don't know, AirWatch for their MDM, and they tell me that they're also using, I don't know, Sophos Intercept X for their endpoint protection. Well, already just with those two products, I mean, those add up to more than £5.70. So could it make sense for this customer to potentially cancel these two solutions, make the move to Business Premium, save a bit of money, and have control over pretty much equivalents of all of these solutions and more for a product which is going to be costing them less than what they were already spending? A solution which could potentially be easier to manage, a solution which could be easier to deploy, a solution which could potentially in some cases offer them better levels of security. So these are the questions that we need to be asking. We need to really understand where our customers are at, what solutions they're using, what are their plans for the future, what does the future of work look like for them? Are they going to be moving to a hybrid model? Are they going back to the office? If they're working hybrid or continue to work remotely, again, how are you going to do that securely? How are you going to do that and save money? These are the sort of questions we could be asking our customers. And once again, has anyone got any thoughts or potential points that they feel that customers could potentially raise that could derail this conversation that we're having? Any objections? Sorry.
It's Neil Lepage here from ITC Secure. So I just want to ask a question around threat defense mobile. So obviously we've got MDM, which is about securing the device. We've got MAM, which is about, securing the data. And then you've got this, you've got your advanced controls, which really falls in an area called threat defense mobile. So as an example, if you look at a threat, which was something called SourMint, which came out a couple years back, where there was like 3,000 applications that people were using globally with an SDK that was leaking data from everyone's iPhones, and only a component like Threat Defense Mobile would actually detect whether there was data exfiltration going on there. So I just wanted to understand, do we know if Microsoft are doing anything in the TDM kind of area at the moment, or is it that we still need to rely on third-party solutions to plug into your MDM and MAM?
That's a fantastic question. Thank you. I'm not entirely sure is the honest answer. I will find out if you could do me a really big favor,
Yep.
if you could just in the chat box, would you be able to just type like an abridged version of that question, just so I can take that to some of my other guys at Microsoft, and I'll find you an answer for that. But you do raise a very good point, and I mentioned this in the last session. Were you here on the last session?
No, I actually only joined ITC 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Oh, fair enough. No worries. Well, welcome. I hope hope it's all going well for you.
Yeah, it's going good.
Well, one of the things that I mentioned in last week's session is we're not. I'm not saying, so this is just like an example on the screen about all of the different products which customers may buy from different security providers. The one thing that I'm not saying here is like, hey guys, don't sell this stuff ever again, just sell M365. I'm not saying that and I'm sorry if that's how it came across, but that's not the message. That there will be some products out there that do some very specific tasks, which some customers may still want to purchase, and that is absolutely fine. Of course it is. There will always be customers out there that want to go down multi-solution approaches, really kind of belt and braces when it comes to security, and that's fine. That's a very sensible thing for customers to be doing. But the key message around this is, for products like you just mentioned, where it is a third-party tool which does a job of monitoring data exfiltration, so that might be a product which a customer may continue to purchase. And again, that's fine. They can still do that, but they can still potentially save money by potentially offloading some of the more basic security solutions. So things such as antivirus, device management, data leakage tools, things like that, they could potentially still use M365 for. So even if they are still spending a bit of money on some very specific security tools, they still have the potential to save a boatload of money on some of the more kind of basic and everyday security solutions, if that makes sense.
Thanks for that, Ed. Appreciate that.
But I thank you for raising that, though, because that is an important point, that we're not taking this as a solution to say, right, Mr. Customer, get rid of everything you've got and just replace it with this. That is not it. It's again, and that's why we have to have that conversation with customers. If they tell us they're using something and they're using it for a very specific reason, okay, fine, keep hold of that. But what about some of the other stuff? There is so many options with things like M365 Business Premium that we can really run through a whole list of what the customer is using. The customer might go, okay, well, yeah, that one I can move that into Business Premium. I can move this into Business Premium. This one, I'd rather keep this with Sophos. Okay, yeah, fine, you can do that. But again, it's just giving that customer that flexibility to choose and give you guys the ability to be more dynamic in your security conversations with customers, and again, around what we can offer them, and of course really maximizing the potential benefits for you guys to be able to offer managed services. And again, we discussed that in last week's session, how managed services is incredibly important. That is the differentiator. That is what makes us all stand apart from our competitors, because again, every reseller in the country can sell all of these security products, just like every reseller can sell Business Premium. It is the managed service options that we can offer that can not only add greater revenue to our organizations, but can then also add much higher levels of value to the customer. Again, building that loyalty, that customer stickiness, so that when renewals time comes around, customers aren't just shopping around looking for who's selling it for the cheapest, because they feel they are getting value from you guys. Okie doke. Any questions on anything at all so far? No, we all good? Okay.
Just actually, Ed, sorry, yeah, just a quick one. Robin again,
yes.
Pain in the butt here. The cost on the left-hand side for next to other vendors, is that just added up all the way down to the bottom, 19.99?
Yes.
So am I missing something here then? Because I think you're doing yourself a disjustice here on M365. What you've got is the cost of 1510 with all of that included, but what we're not mentioning is everything else that we get with M365 as well.
Well, yeah, no, you know, you are very, very right on that, Robin, because yeah, you're exactly right. That for the sake of a penny, that 20 quid, that doesn't include all of the Office stuff.
Exactly, yeah. So they're going to have to pay for that as well.
They have to pay for that as well, exactly. And so they'd have to buy what to get the full Office package. What you're looking at, business standard, so that's just shy of 10 quid.
10 quid, yeah.
So you're looking at just under £30, to be honest.
Double.
So yeah, so Business Premium can offer again equivalents of these solutions and all of the Office features for again almost half the price.
Yeah.
So if anything, the value is even the gap is widened further when you bring all the Office applications and cloud services into account as well. But that's a very good point. Thank you for raising that.
Okay.
Does anyone here sell Google products like Google Workspace or anything like that? No. Okay. Well, I'll just very quickly go over this then. If none of us are active Google resellers, again, this won't necessarily be something which you're going to discuss all the time. But again, you might find yourselves talking to customers who have gone and done their own research and want to ask you why they should buy M365 Business Premium as opposed to Google Workspace Business Plus, which is Google's equivalent of Business Premium. And for customers who are looking to save money right now, and of course, saving money, again, is absolutely crucial at the moment, some customers may be swayed by the fact that Google does come in a little bit cheaper than M365 Business Premium. That could be quite attractive. It's not that much cheaper, to be honest, but again, every little helps, as they say. So some customers might say, well, Google, Microsoft, kind of the same thing, so I'm going to go with Google Workspace. Now, I understand that you guys don't sell Google Workspace Business Plus, but can anyone think of any reasons why choosing Google Workspace over M365 Business Premium, working on the fact that it's only a little bit cheaper, why that could end up being a false economy on behalf of the customer if they were to choose Google? Any thoughts? No? Is I by your silence, are you saying that Google and Microsoft 365 are the same thing? Surely not. Let me have a look in the room. I'm gonna find someone to talk to me. Okay. Oh, hi Joe. What do you reckon?
Joe at Trams here. I wasn't trying to be quiet on purpose, but
that's right.
Definitely not a identical product, identical solution. Obviously, both within their own right fall into a very commercial sort of a feature-rich perspective, but ultimately, Microsoft seems to come out with the sort of a higher number of features, applications, and benefits, really. I mean, we can spend the rest of the afternoon talking about which ones they are, but ultimately, they're not identical, but they ultimately fall into a strategic plan that's been on the roll for a number of years, which is to bring end users to a cloud platform, and they both seem to be in line with that, which is cloud applications, cloud storage, and ability to offer, people to remotely log in and use their tools. Does that sound right?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Microsoft has that pedigree. Microsoft has always been a commercial first business, whereas Google have always kind of had a more of a consumer first kind of approach with the Google productivity platform. Again, that was focused more around consumers in its inception, whereas Microsoft Office has always been focused on business first and then consumer second. So, and that really kind of stands testament that products like M365 and Office 365, that these are the industry standards which many organizations use. Google doesn't have that same pedigree. They don't meet things like security standards, for example. Google, again, it's not a bad product. I'm not saying it is by any measure, but Google does not meet things like the same standards of security and compliance that M365 does. I mean, for example, we've got hyper security conscious organizations, people like the Ministry of Defense, who use Microsoft 365 because, and do you think the Ministry of Defense is going to use something that they don't think is the most secure thing ever? Well, of course they're not. They're going to use the most secure tools available at their disposal. And that's really why M365 has that kind of popularity across many different types of business. And again, Google does not match those same levels. Also in terms of things like functionality as well, that was another one you mentioned, Joe, around functionality and the tools that are available. Whilst there are some similarities with some products within Google Workspace Business Plus, it doesn't offer that same rich function feature set that you get with M365 Business Premium. Take things like Teams, for example. Google has got their equivalent, which is Google Hangouts, but it doesn't have things like the integration with things like M365, the document sharing, the collaboration, the co-authoring, the translation services, captioning, accessibility tools. And that's just an example of one product. Some Google products have been plagued with compatibility issues when people try and send spreadsheets that have been created in Google and they send it to someone who uses Microsoft. Again, compatibility can go a little bit all over the place. Don't get me wrong, Google it's not a bad product, but it's just not up to those same standards. And in terms of, oh yeah, go on.
Yeah, very fair point. I mean, my understanding is obviously price aside, Google does tend to create their own world as such for security.
Yeah,
they seem to implemented their own cloud platform for security with the basic fundamentals for disaster recovery and high availability and so on, claiming that there is the usual 99.9% high availability across their data centers. But I'm with you that there is a substantial difference under the bonnet between the two vendors.
No, I completely agree. Like I said, I'm not having a go at Google. I'm not saying that, hey, they make really bad products, because they don't. But when you look at them from an objective standpoint in terms of what is offered, the differences between the two, and whether it's things like trust or innovation or that enterprise experience, that pedigree that Microsoft has, again, Google just doesn't match up. And I'm not going to go through this line by line, but I do have some, and again, these slides will be shared with you, and this is more for ammunition for your back pocket. If you do find yourself speaking to a customer who is either using Google or they're considering buying M365 or Google Workspace Business Plus, and they're still kind of like, you know, tossing up between the two, again, here's just some information which you can potentially use to drive that conversation around things such as security, for example, or even things around maximizing the impact of resources and investments, highlighting the fact that things like Google customers need third-party apps for advanced features. And again, that adds that cost and complexity, that thing that we're trying to avoid by using M365. That is something which would then be actively added into a Google deployment. And then there's one last thing on this, and then we'll take a very quick 5-minute break. It's just really the difference between the two companies. And I'm sure you've seen Microsoft's mission statement in the past. They put it up on the screen at every kind of Ignite and Inspire and everything else. And it's all about empowerment, empowering people, empowering businesses to achieve more. Microsoft has always had this big focus on shared customer success. As an organization, Microsoft is funded by subscription-based models. I mean, let's be honest, everything in Microsoft is subscription-based these days, whether it be things like CSP licensing with things like M365, whether it be Azure, even consumer services like Xbox Live, that's all subscription-based services. And because of this, this makes Microsoft the world's largest commercial cloud business. And then when you look at Google's, this is where the difference between the company really kind of shows, because again, a lot of people see Google and Microsoft, well, they're both tech companies, they're both cloud companies. So basically Microsoft and Google are the same, but the mission statement really sets it apart. Google's mission statement is all about organizing the world's information, making it accessible to everyone. So that's their focus. We know that Google as an organization, they're powered by advertising. That's where their key revenue comes from. It's advertising. And as you probably know, that Google is one of the world's leading advertising platforms, which then begs the question, doesn't it, that if you are Google's customer, does that also mean that you're Google's product? But I will leave that for you to mull over. Any questions before we wrap this one up? No, we all good? Okay, that session went on for a bit longer than I intended it to, so we're just going to take a very short 5-minute break. I'm just going to put a timer up on the screen here, so let me just put this up. And so yeah, once the timer hits 0, if you can all be back in the room for then, otherwise I will catch you guys in 5 minutes. Okie doke, welcome back everyone. So let's jump into the next session, which is, like I said, this one is a bit of a gear change. Okay, so we're talking about going from Office 365 E3 to Microsoft 365 E3. Now, does anyone know what the key difference in what you get between Office and Office 365 products and Microsoft 365 products, especially from an E3 perspective? Does anyone know? Any thoughts?
No.
So with Office 365 E3, we've got to remember that with Office, it's just Office. Office 365 E3 is just the Office products, okay? You don't get anything around things like Windows. So Windows 10 is not included. So bear in mind, with Microsoft 365, you get Office 365 E3, you get Windows 10 E3, and you get Enterprise Mobility and Security P1. Okay, that's what you get with Microsoft 365. And obviously with Office 365, all you're getting is Office. Okay, so there are some key areas where Office 365 customers are going to be lacking in certain areas. And again, it's very similar to what we looked at before. Because they've just got Office tools, they won't have anything around enterprise security. They won't have anything around management or anything like that. So again, we can be asking pretty much all the same questions that we asked before. How are they managing remote workers? What are they doing around security? Because again, Office 365 doesn't include all of these advanced security tools that we mentioned in the previous session. How are we managing our BYOD environments? Again, how are we managing corporate data outside of the organization? If our customer were to make the move from Office 365 E3 to Microsoft 365 E3, this is what they're getting for their money. So everything on the above line, this is what they would already have with Office 365. So they would already had all of this, but for an additional £10.50 per user per month, they're going to be getting security features such as Azure Information Protection P1, conditional access, a license for Windows Virtual Desktop, Azure AD P1, enterprise mobility and security. So again, all around managing devices and data. And of course, Windows 10 Enterprise 3. So giving a lot more security controls in Windows than you would get with just Windows 10 Pro, for example. So this is the key difference around what you're getting with M365 E3. And to be honest, this is quite a straightforward sell, because if customers are using Office 365 E3, I would guess that many customers are definitely spending more than this on third-party device management and OS security solutions. So £10.50 for everything they're getting around just things like Windows 10 Enterprise. Just buying a license for Windows 10 Enterprise is £7 per user per month for Windows 10 Enterprise 3. So again, it's for the fact that you're going to have all of this for only £10.50, that does represent significant value. Now, in terms of some of the key features and benefits, let's start off with Windows 10, because Windows 10, again, hugely adopted, the fastest adopted operating system in Microsoft's history. There are still people out there using Windows 7, believe it or not. But Windows 10 does have some pretty advanced features. The stuff in green is what we would find in Windows 10 Pro, but then we've got certain other features which we find in E3 and E5, things like Credential Guard, Device Guard, Enterprise Data Protection. Now, unfortunately, I don't have time to run through all of these features and exactly what they do. For example, things like Credential Guard, making sure that customers don't fall vulnerable to very specific types of identity and credential theft based attacks, things like pass the hash attacks, identity token theft, all of that sort of stuff, which was absolutely rife with Windows 7. Again, the design of Windows 10 Enterprise, the architecture around it, making sure that a lot of these legacy types of attacks are ineffective against Windows 10. And again, a lot of these products like Credential Guard, Device Guard, Enterprise Data Protection, all of these features do exist as third-party products. There will be customers out there, for example, someone using Office 365 E3 and they've got Windows 10 Pro, they might be purchasing third-party solutions that offer them these levels of protection. And again, remember, we're talking about cutting down cost and complexity, how we can roll in a lot of these potential security solutions into your M365 offering. Now, we don't have time to go through everything in Windows 10. Honestly, we could do an entire session just on Windows 10 alone. There is plenty of stuff out there in terms of Windows 10, in terms of what it offers around security. And if you haven't already looked, I would highly recommend looking into the differences between Windows 10 E3, Windows 10 E5 versus Windows 10 Pro. Windows 10 Pro is by far the most popular, but I would really go out and gain an understanding on really what some of the differences are with Windows 10 E3 and E5. So a lot of the other things that are included as part of M365 E3 are some of the things that we've discussed in previous sessions. So I'm not going to go into it in too much detail. So things such as conditional access and MFA, for example, we discussed this in the previous session. Again, this is stuff that you do not get with Office 365 E3. So the fact that, again, this is something which is going to be included in Microsoft 365 E3 means that customers that are spending money on conditional access and MFA solutions from people like Cisco Duo, for example, this is money that could be saved. It's the same with our MDM and MAM solutions. Again, this stuff is not available with Office 365 E3. And again, if we're speaking to customers on Office 365 E3 and they are using MDM solutions, well, let's find out what they are using. Where is it from? How much does it cost? How much time and effort goes into managing these solutions? Other things which also are not included. So again, we spoke about mobile app management, Intune as well. I don't know if anyone wants recaps on any of these. I know we spoke about this in the previous session, but are we all following this fairly well?
Yeah, all good.
Yeah. So like I said, there is a bit of repetition here because, again, we're going to start seeing a lot of these security features because, again, we just spoke about Business Premium. And as I mentioned, a lot of the security features in Business Premium were lifted directly from the Enterprise plan. So, again, we're going to see a lot of the same stuff coming in. And, again, all of these solutions, so things like Azure Information Protection, the ability to classify and label our data. Again, these are tools that we're not going to find in just Office 365 E3 on its own. And of course, enterprise mobility and security as a product, which is included as part of M365 E3, really does offer a huge amount of control around devices, data, users, identity, and access. So this is everything that is included as part of enterprise mobility and security. Enterprise mobility and security isn't a single product. Enterprise mobility and security is just a kind of a header for an entire subset of solutions that are included. So as part of enterprise mobility and security, we get things like Microsoft Intune. So we discussed that earlier, being able to manage the devices. So for people using BYOD or corporate owned devices, the ability to manage the data or wipe data from the devices if need be, that is a part of enterprise mobility and security. Azure Information Protection, being able to classify and label our data, making sure that our most sensitive corporate files don't potentially get leaked outside of the organization. Microsoft Cloud App Security, which we did speak about in last week's session, but for those of you that weren't on last week's session, we'll have a very quick recap over that. Azure AD, are we all good with Azure Active Directory, what it is, what it does, what it's for?
No, Ed, can you give us a quick overview, please? Sorry.
Yep, so Azure Active Directory is an identity and access management tool. So at a high level, imagine Azure Active Directory as it's just a spreadsheet. It's a spreadsheet with a list of names of everyone who works for that company. And then next to their names, the permissions of what they can and can't do. So for example, in your organization, Robin, you've probably got Azure AD. And on Azure AD, there'll be a list of everyone's names. Your name will be on that list. And next to your name, it will say that Robin has permission to use the corporate Wi-Fi. Robin also has permission to use the company's SharePoint. Robin has permission to use the printer network, all of that sort of stuff. Everything that you can and can't do within a business is all managed and delegated by Azure Active Directory. That's one of its tasks. Think of Azure AD as the bouncer on the door of the nightclub. So if you were to walk up to the bouncer, Robin, and you show him your driver's license, so here we go, this is me. Once the bouncer has confirmed that that ID is you, confirm that that is your identity, he will then look at the guest list and go, right, welcome back, Robin. You've got permission to go to the bar. You've got permission to go to the dance floor. You've got permission to use the toilets. Away you go. That's effectively what Azure Active Directory is doing. It works almost like a bit of a gatekeeper for identity and access and permissions.
Excellent,
does that make
thanks.
sense, or was that?
Yeah, love the analogy as well. Cheers.
So, you can tell I'm missing the pub, can't you? And then the last one is advanced threat analytics as well. Now, advanced threat analytics is becoming part of a different tool. So it does still exist at the moment, but it's being rolled into another part of Microsoft. So I'll send out some links for some more information around that. But I'm going to talk about that and this in a bit more detail in just a second. But this is what enterprise mobility and security is. You can see that it's a very rich tool set around managing our remote and mobile workers. And again, considering the state of affairs that we're in at the moment, the fact that remote working is here to stay, tools like this can make all the difference to customers. And bear in mind, all of this stuff that we're looking at right here, this is not in Office 365 E3. Office 365 E3, great tool, but is it fully optimized to manage a remote workforce securely? Probably not so much. Microsoft 365 E3 is geared towards this. So some of the extra tools that you get in enterprise mobility and security, things like advanced threat analytics. Now, advanced threat analytics is a fantastic tool which basically uses behavioral sensors to detect suspicious activity within your infrastructure. As you can see at the top of the screen, 200 days, 200 plus days is the average amount of time attackers would reside within infrastructure before they're detected. And obviously, this is a terrible thing. There's been examples of when this has happened. Some of you remember a good 5 years ago, TalkTalk. They had to come out and very publicly announce that they had had an attacker in their infrastructure for over a year. And in that time, that attacker had harvested all kinds of information, customer details, credit cards, addresses, all of that stuff. And TalkTalk had to come out and announce to all of its customers, yeah, your identities may now be for sale on the dark web. We're sorry. And as you can imagine, customers went nuts. They were absolutely furious that they had trusted TalkTalk with their data and all this stuff had been leaked out. And TalkTalk came very close to the brink of collapse. Customers left in their droves. Having an attacker within your infrastructure for any length of time is an unacceptable situation. Tools like advanced threat analytics constantly monitor activities of employees and report anything it deems as suspicious. So, for example, let's say within my business, I've got a software engineer called Almeta Whitfield, who normally day to day, she signs in on 9 devices. She's got 9 devices that she uses. She's a software engineer, so that kind of makes sense. But recently, Almeta's credentials have been used to sign in on 16 abnormal devices that we've never seen before. So first of all, that's a bit weird. What's weirder is those 16 abnormal devices have been used to access abnormal resources, areas of the business, documents, files, and document libraries that Almeta never normally accesses. So again, this is all suspicious behavior. Does this mean that there has been an identity theft that has taken place where Almeta's details have been stolen and now being used by attackers? But the fact is, advanced threat analytics delivers these insights in real time. If it detects something which it doesn't like the look of, it's going to notify us. We can then investigate. I can phone Almeta up. I don't want to email her if her account has been compromised. I don't want to email, so I might phone Almeta and say, hey, it's Ed from IT. Just want to check something because I'm seeing some weird readings here. And I can get the story about what's going on. If I detect that, if I find out this is not Almeta, I can shut down Almeta's credentials, blocking out these attacks. The fact is, I'm not going to have to wait 200 days in order to find this out. The fact that I'm getting this information delivered to me quickly, where I can react fast, because I don't want to have to wait 200 days for a majority of my customers' details to have been leaked onto the dark web before we finally decide to act. So having tools like this in place can allow organizations to respond quicker to attacks and potential threats. And again, Office 365 E3 does not have this. Any questions on ATA?
Think about asking for an extension.
No.
No, we're all good. Okay.
Just one small suggestion on the previous slide. I think you've got App Locker. It's probably good to probably adjust that to App Control, because Microsoft they're recommending how to use Application Control instead of App Locker. The advantage with Application Control is that we can make sure that there's not integrity issues with like the BIOS and drivers in system.
Okay, no, thank you for that. I don't suppose you. Was that on the Windows 10 slide?
Yeah, that's on the Windows 10 slide. It's
yeah.
only a slight
I see. Yes,
but...
no, you're quite right.
Yeah.
You are quite right.
Yep.
I'll get that changed. Thank you for that. Okay. Just one last thing on this, and then we'll jump into the last one, which we're going to have to go through fairly quickly. So I've just got a very quick video just on enterprise mobility and security. Have a quick look at this.
Cybersecurity remains a top challenge for today's organizations. While it's essential to give users mobile access to company data, these increasingly complex interactions generate new blind spots for IT. Cybersecurity attacks are getting more sophisticated, and they can have a significant impact on business. Microsoft Enterprise Mobility and Security provides a holistic and innovative approach to security. It addresses sophisticated attacks with comprehensive controls, deep visibility, unique intelligence, and advanced detection and response. Identity-driven security starts with identity protection capabilities to safeguard access to resources at the front door. Before apps and data can be accessed, users, devices, and locations must be trusted. Azure Active Directory can make that possible by placing one secure identity at the center of your business. Azure AD leverages billions of signals to provide advanced identity protection for all your users and administrators. It protects you at the front door with location, device, and risk-based conditional access policies, multi-factor authentication, and security audit reports and alerts. Often, attackers target privileged accounts to access critical company data, or they seek idle admin accounts that create a known vulnerability. Azure Active Directory Privileged Identity Management helps you manage and protect these accounts by discovering, restricting, and monitoring privileged identities and their access to resources. It also helps you enforce administrative access for an exact period of time and manage built-in Azure AD organizational roles. Part of Microsoft Enterprise Mobility and Security, these innovative security technologies help protect your users, devices, apps, and data, both on-premises and in the cloud.
Okie doke. So on to the potential savings of making that move to Microsoft 365 E3. And again, I'm not saying customers are buying all of this stuff, but again, just looking at the cost of some of these security products, the cost of a Windows 10 E3 license, we could be looking in some cases in excess of £40 per user per month. Again, Microsoft 365 E3 goes beyond just the financial benefits into offering organizations to enable a much more secure and remote workplace, more so than what you could find with Office 365 just on its own, purely because of the enterprise mobility and security features. That probably is the greatest selling point of M365 E3. If we were having this particular upsell conversation, that is where I would focus a majority of the efforts around the enterprise mobility and security areas, because that is where it's going to stand apart and enable organizations to not just manage their users, but their devices and their data remotely. And again, doing all of this for £28, 10p per month can add significant savings to customers. Any questions on anything at all so far? Nope, we all good? Okay, let's talk about the last piece. Which is upselling from M365 E3 to Microsoft 365 E5. Okay, so both enterprise SKUs and going up from E3 to E5. Now, this one is a bit of a jump. Okay, this one is not the easiest upsell because it is the most expensive. E5 is obviously the top product in the M365 lineup. It is the most expensive, and as we've already discussed with Microsoft 365 E3, that again, as far as a tool goes, it is fantastic. I mean, it does offer a lot of features around security and device management. It's £28, 10p per user per month. So it is still quite a good solution from that perspective. It doesn't offer the same levels of security that we would find in E5. So again, there would be some specific pain points around some third-party security solutions, which E3 customers may be using. There might be, and again, that's going to increase their cost for meeting compliance standards. They might have a need to be able to gain more value from business data. I am, of course, referring to things like Power BI. Now, if our customer were to make the move from M365 E3 to Microsoft 365 E5, well, it's going to cost an additional £20 per user per month. And I appreciate that is quite a big jump from one to the other. Like I said, this is probably one of the hardest upsells to do because it is a significant chunk of change. But as you can see, you're getting a fair bit for your money. For that £20, that includes things like Endpoint Manager, Azure Information Protection P2, Defender for Endpoint, Defender for Office 365, Cloud App Security, Defender for Identity, Azure AD P2, and Power BI Pro. And just to put that into perspective, just to buy Power BI Pro on its own, that's 10 quid just for Power BI. So that's £10 already, which goes into that cost. Now, if we were to look at the two SKUs kind of back to back, this is the difference. And you can quite clearly see that E3 does not have the same levels of security that we would find within E5. That's really where we're seeing the difference in cost. Now, for some of you and for some of your customers, this will be too much of a jump. Going from E3 to E5, 20 quid. They might love all the features that E5 has, but it's just too expensive. And I appreciate that. 20 quid is a lot of money. So there is an alternative, okay, which I just want to put to you. If customers are struggling with the, going from E3 to E5, the other option is we can sell security bolt-ons to their E3 plan. So for example, if you've got a customer on E3 who wants to have things like Defender for Identity, Defender for Office 365, Defender for Endpoint, that sort of stuff, well, they can buy these products separately, or they can buy a security bolt-on, which they can get for £9. A 48% saving on if they were to buy them all absolutely separately. So this is a great way of being able to kind of meet in the middle, if you will. If it's security, that is the key driving feature. And that's really the difference between E3 and E5. It's the security. But if £20 is too much, again, we can get around that. So for example, we can sell them advanced threat protection. So Defender for Endpoint. We can sell them cloud app security. What else is in there? Azure AD P2. What else have we got? Windows Defender ATP. Again, we've got that. Defender for Office 365 again is going to be in there. So we can sell them these core security products for only £9. So that really, oh, and sorry, Defender for Identity should be in there as well. So all of these products, again, can go in for only £9. So for those customers that are struggling with that £20 difference, again, that can really potentially help. This is a great, like I said, alternative to that. There is also a compliance package as well, which you can purchase for £7.50, which includes things like Office 365 Advanced Compliance and Azure Information Protection P2 as well. But I've got to say, by far and away, this is the most popular bolt-on that we see going on to E3 plans. And again, this can be used almost like a stepping stone. For some customers who you're trying to have this upsell conversation with, this can be a great way to start them off. Maybe after a year of having the security package, they might think, well, I want everything else. So they might then make the move into E5 eventually. But this is a great kind of step in between the two. Has anyone actively sold any of these security bolt-ons for any of their M365 E3 customers? No? Well, if you haven't, again, like I said, it is an option. And as part of an upsell motion, again, it can really help. Now, the difference between E3 and E5, as I mentioned, it is, of course, security. That is where the difference lies. We do have a lot of slides in this deck, which are the same as what we've just gone through. So we are going to skip over those quite quickly. But I do just want to highlight this video right here, just highlighting some of the key security features that you get with Microsoft 365 E5. All of this stuff that you get with E5 that you do not get with E3. Have a quick look at this.
Data is your company's most valuable asset, by a long shot. At any given moment, you should know what data is sensitive and be able to control access to it. In this new digital world where devices and users roam free, it's even more important to have smart, adaptive security that doesn't slow down productivity. The intelligent cloud offers an opportunity to do security better. Cloud computing has fueled an intelligence revolution and keeps us connected like never before. So imagine if you could change how your enterprise did security, sharing security signals worldwide and going on the offensive with advanced hunting capabilities. That would be a game changer, wouldn't it? For enterprise customers who embrace the Microsoft Productivity Suite, there are significant gains to be realized in security. With Microsoft 365, guarding your data as a valuable asset starts with a great user authentication experience accessible from any location or any device. Access levels and how users are authenticated dynamically adjust based on user or device risk. Threat protection tools communicate with each other to connect security signals across your entire digital footprint and automate threat protection, investigation, and remediation, which makes life easier for your security operations team. With security built in, not bolt on, integration and deployment are simplified, ultimately helping to reduce the number of security vendors we manage. It even secures third-party platforms, apps and services. Microsoft 365 provides complete, intelligent security that adapts to any modern workplace, delivering identity and access management, information protection, threat protection, and security management. The digital wave has transformed the way you work. Now it's time to do security better. It's time for Microsoft 365 Enterprise E5. When you're ready to step up security, start a POC or a free trial and see for yourself.
Okay, so you can see from that video, that is really the message behind making that move to E5. It is all built around security, safeguarding data, identities, infrastructure, users, absolutely everything. That is the focus around this. Now, some of the things that you get with E5 that you're not getting with E3, so things like Azure AD P2. Now, there's actually only 6 additional features that you get with P2 that you don't get with P1. Now, why would a customer want to make the move to E5 and specifically around things like Azure AD P2? Well, there are certain questions which we can ask customers around this. If they need to be able to detect risky accounts within their tenant, well, yes, definitely be using P2 for things like the identity protection features. Would they like to be notified about such risks such as password-based attacks, impossible travel, leaked credentials, that sort of thing? Then, of course, P2 is going to help. Are your security requirements fulfilled with the general conditional access policies, or do you need a little bit more? Because again, we can have now risk-based dynamic conditional access policies, things that kind of adapt and generate a risk analysis based on things like the device, the user, the location, and basically use that to analyze if this particular sign-in is risky rather than just going on conditions by itself. So Azure AD P2 is all about identity, protection, and governance. And these are areas that organizations need to be doing more of. Then E5 is definitely the direction that they should be looking. Also, tools around identity and access. We've got things like Microsoft Defender for Identity, effectively scrutinizing login attempts and looking for any suspicious behavior that may be detected. For example, detecting things like potential brute force attacks within our organization. We mentioned before that 80% of breaches are due to weak and stolen passwords. So, for example, here we've got an example of a notification which is telling me as an IT administrator that there is a potential brute force attack in action at the moment, that a particular user has tried 16,188 passwords on 3 accounts. And of course, the fact that I'm being made aware of this, that I have this kind of information being delivered directly to me as an IT administrator, means that in terms of investigations, all of that can be automated. I can now set protections in place to make sure these types of attacks aren't going to be successful in the future. So again, allowing me to do more as an IT administrator to protect my own borders. We already spoke about advanced threat analytics, so I'm just going to skip over this one, but I do want to mention this, which is Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Now, Defender for Endpoint isn't a single product. Much like enterprise mobility and security, Defender for Endpoint is just a name for a whole subset of tools around things like threat and vulnerability management, reducing your attack surface, next-gen protection, endpoint detection and response, auto investigation and auto remediation, and Microsoft threat experts as well, effectively AI tools that are there to help and guide IT administrators into the sorts of attacks and sort of things they should be doing. So kind of like proactive monitoring and support, which is delivered for no additional cost from Microsoft. Now, this can give you a whole dashboard over your entire estate. So I already mentioned that the whole idea with Microsoft 365 is to, again, reduce that complexity. Now, again, imagine using all of these different security products, all of these different apps that all function differently. If you move your security into things like Microsoft 365, especially within E5, you can have full visibility over the security of your entire estate. It helps give context into attacks as well. It helps give you prioritization, what things you need to be focusing on right now. So you can see on the screen, we've got things like severity distribution. So I can see the areas that I need to be focusing on in terms of my overall exposure as an organization. It's giving me context and information on areas and certain things that I need to be focusing my time on by categorizing certain threats or certain issues into things like low, medium, and high, so I know where I have to focus my time. IT administrators can sometimes be very quickly overwhelmed with loads of different things they need to address, but if no context or prioritization is given to them, they could be wasting time remediating things that aren't particularly important. Again, M365 security within Defender for Endpoint is going to help IT administrators see where their time is best spent, as well as giving them this full overview of their estate from a single pane of glass view, which from overworked administrators, there is a global shortage of IT SecOps to be able to do this kind of work. So again, giving people the tools to be able to kind of narrow down and kind of prioritize their efforts can be hugely beneficial. 2 seconds. I know we're very close to time, so I'm just going to focus on some of the things that, again, as part of E5, we can focus on. So things like Power BI, for example. Does anyone here use Power BI within their organizations?
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. So, and again, you'll know that Power BI is an incredibly important tool. More and more businesses are starting to understand the value of data and really what data can bring to the business, allowing them to be more agile and more effective, be more efficient. There are plenty of business intelligence tools out there. You've got things like Tableau, for example, very well known BI tool, but Tableau again is around 50 something quid per user per month. It's incredibly expensive. Whereas Power BI Pro, again, built into things like M365 E5, allowing organizations to transform the way that they use and access their data. And the other things around M365 E5, now we mentioned this in the first session, which is cloud app security. Now, again, this isn't something which you get in E3, but you do get it in Business Premium, strangely enough. Business Premium and E5 both have this. We mentioned last week the problems with shadow IT, people downloading and using applications and services which are not sanctioned by the organization. Having tools like this in place, again, allowing IT administrators to be able to monitor what applications people are using on company issued or company managed devices, making sure people aren't using things like their personal Google Drives on their corporate devices where they could be saving corporate data to. One of the biggest problems with shadow IT is that it's rife, especially now with people working remotely. But the biggest problem is, how do you know? How do you know people are doing this? So again, being able to monitor what people are doing with shadow IT. So for example, I've got my discovered apps just here. So I can see everything green is sanctioned, everything red is unsanctioned. This is stuff people shouldn't be using. So I can see things like Google and Mega, again, showing up in that list. I can use the tools in Cloud App Security to block access to these applications. If I don't want people using personal applications or potentially risky applications which could introduce threats into the organization, I can use the tools in Cloud App Security to block access to those apps, making sure that people cannot use them anymore. So giving a lot of control back to the organization of how their devices are used, what applications and what resources are accessed. There are videos for all of these, but I will send the videos out separately just for the sake of time. But really, in terms of saving money with M365 E5, like I said, all geared around security. So for organizations that are looking to have the ultimate in security, and just to put in perspective, Microsoft as a global organization use Microsoft 365 E5. Microsoft does not use any third-party security products at all. All Microsoft employees worldwide use M365 E5, and that's it. That's all Microsoft uses to secure its devices, data, identity, and endpoints. So Microsoft, being one of the world's largest companies, one of the most attacked companies as well, I should throw out, along with people like the US Department of Defense and the Ministry of Defense, Microsoft is up there as one of the most frequently attacked companies. The fact that Microsoft has not had a breach of its cloud services, there have been some breaches around things like on-prem exchanges, but in terms of Microsoft cloud services, having a great operational record in terms of security, this really means that M365 E5 for many customers could be a fantastic tool. And for those customers that cannot stretch to the £48 10p per month of E5, don't forget, we can sell them the security add-ons to their E3 plan for only £9, which can reduce this cost even further. Okay. I think we'll have to wrap it up there just for the sake of time. But does anyone have any questions about anything that we've gone through throughout this session before we tie a knot in this? Nope. Has anyone found this session useful or learned something they didn't know before they joined the session that they would like to share?
Yeah, very much so, Ed. It's been really good. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much, Robin. Very kind of you to say. Well, guys, thank you so much for your time. I hope this has been a valuable use of your time. Like I said, all of this content and the videos will be sent out to you. So definitely have a look through it. Nothing in this stuff is NDA. So if you do want to share it with customers, absolutely go for it. But there will be another session next week. We'll be speaking about only one topic, which is, of course, business voice and how modern cloud telephony can really help customers stay in touch. So look forward to that next week. So hopefully I'll get to speak to you all again then. But until then, everyone, take care of yourselves, and I'll catch you on the next one. See you later.
Thanks again, Ed.
Cheers.
Thanks, Ed.
Cheers, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
Hi, Cassie. You still there?